Alright, let me see if I can send you an invitation again. I see you there. You should see it. I sent it.
Oh my God.
Did it work?
Yes. Oh my God. I feel like such a nutcase.
Okay.
I'm literally sweating buckets right now.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. It does it. I don't know why. It's for some reason. Usually, it's uh, sometimes it's they're not on their phone or it's not updated, but other times it's just Instagram.
Well, yeah, whatever. I'm old.
It worked. No worries. You're there.
Hi, it's so nice to see your face.
Yes, it's nice to meet you too. Good to see you. I'm glad this was able to work out.
We're a little late, but whatever. You know what? Shit happens.
It's okay. Exactly. Yeah, not too late, so it's good. So I am glad that I got you to be here to talk about this important topic. I know it's something that's close to you and important to you, and I kind of want to know a little bit of a backstory about why it's, obviously everybody should be obviously against bullying and advocating for it, but I normally like to kind of start out as like if you've ever have been bullied or have any experience with cyberbullying or in person, offline. And what I also know you wrote a piece, so I kind of wanted to know a little bit of what prompted that as well, because I know you did a piece on bullying recently.
Okay, so I was a victim of bullying, and I was actually brutally beaten by a female classmate when I was 13. Um, and I don't know if I've quite recovered, to tell you the truth. I mean, it was a very difficult, your early teens are traumatic no matter what is going on because the hormonal shifts are just like astronomic. So to add this to the mix was not unusual at that age, because that's when particularly girls start gossiping and gathering their troops to fend off the competitors. I mean, it's an age-old tribal ritual that doesn't need to exist anymore, but it's still clinging to our society. And I got my nose broken in this fight, and I was too devastated to respond in any social manner, so became agoraphobic. And my mother had to teach me, homeschool me, because I refused to leave the front door because I was just so ashamed from this act of violence and felt so weakened by it that it really traumatized me. It changed my life because I ended up staying home for a year. I didn't leave. I was terrified of people. I was terrified of my peers. And my mother taught me how to do a ballet piece, a piece of Shakespeare. She taught me how to sing a song, and she sent me to drama school. And she said, let's channel all this dysfunction into something functional. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Wow, that's incredibly sad, and I there's so many stories like that, and and now we have cyber on top of that. But yeah, I mean that's just, I'm always saddened when I hear stories like that. It's just, especially like, bullying is also, physical and mental, not only physical, it's also mental and emotional. But when you have the physical aspect to it and you have all of them, it's like, it's just, it is damaging, and it can last for years. It's hard to get over. It's hard to heal. I mean, you find yourself still having trouble and struggling from when you were that young now?
Yes. I don't think it ever goes away. I mean, you can manage skills and develop tools, but I think I do still have an innate social fear. I'm very comfortable at home alone or with my children or with my animals and my husband, but going out into the great wild yonder, I I'm very on guard, and I hear everything and I see everything, and I'm so astute in body language because I want to know who's the enemy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it kind of puts you on alert, and I've been there. I mean, I more so during the pandemic, there was like a lot of cyberbullying that I went through, and you really don't. I come from a generation where, we had fights, we had disagreements, and people, they talked about it. You fought, and sometimes you got over it, and sometimes people just weren't friends anymore. But a lot of the times, people ended up being friends with those people. It was a little bit different of a time and a different generation, but
Yeah,
it was still, it's no less harmful. And now it's just more and more lives are being taken from it. And I recently just posted something on the page about a young boy, over his vaccination status. And so now we're just finding it's just everywhere, and it's about every little thing. But when these babies, and even adults every age, but when you're seeing babies that are dying and taking their life, and people aren't talking about for more than about 5 minutes, but we'll talk about something ridiculous for like months, or something in the public eye for, about, anything. I mean, there's so many things that I see on the internet that people talk about for a very long time that are just like ridiculous. But these type of things and epidemics and things that should be talked about and causes, we're just not making go viral. It's more the ridiculous stuff. So that always
I
baffles.
agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And I wish there was a way to impart to our youth that we cannot take our social media seriously. We cannot take it seriously. It's a game that you play, and you engage in the game, and then you disconnect and live your real life. It's just a game. Play with your photos, make yourself perfect, make yourself thinner or prettier or whatever. I don't know what people do, but that's a game that you play, but it's not reality. It's not real life. And I think there's a very distinct separation here that isn't talked about. It's if you want to play the game, go ahead, do your thing, do your what is it? What is that dance? Do the
Oh,
do the dance, do the dance, do whatever you want to do. But then put your phone away.
right.
Let it go and let it go. I think when I read stuff that's written about me online that's negative, I feel so terrible for the bully. I feel so terrible for the bully because I know their self-esteem is in the toilet,
Yeah.
and they are far worse off than I am.
Yeah.
And so I have to empathize. I have to feel pity for those. And those people do not want pity. That's the last thing they want. They
Yeah.
want to feel empowered. But I just feel pity. And if I think bullies understood that they weren't garnering a following of extraordinary impact, they're actually garnering a following of people who pity them and feel sorry for them and want to heal them, then I think their power actually is like completely imploded right there and then. But I think it's really important, with my own children, when they post on Instagram or on Twitter or on their, what I can't remember the name of. TikTok. Thanks. My husband's sitting right next to me, and he's just feeding me. He's feeding me information. No, but like on TikTok, that's great. That's fabulous, but it's not reality. And
Right.
and you know what? It takes the misconception of that life being real life that causes suicide, that causes this tremendous deficit in self-esteem.
Yeah, I agree. You're not the first person that has said that in conversations that I've held. A lot of people, I think that we're getting confused with our realities at this point with online and social media. Look, and I love social media. I think it's great for charity causes, networking. I've met some great people. It's good for business things. It's great for a lot of things. There's a double-edged sword to it. But when we're living our life from virtual reality, and for sadly, for some generations, they grew up with it. I didn't. I mean, I had MySpace at one point, but I was older. So, you know, and I had beepers, and we went to use a payphone, and
Right.
the phones when they first came out were like bricks. So, I mean, we didn't have all this. We were outside. We were talking. We learned empathy and compassion because first of all, a lot of these people wouldn't say things to your face. And, you know, back in my day, you had to. And people did. They
Right.
fought or they were done. And I'm not saying bullying did not exist. It did. It always has. It's just coming more to the forefront because now there's social media. But there is this blurred reality line. And I keep saying it because I'm very much on it, except for this and some other things I do work-wise. I really I really don't enjoy it like I used to because there's so much negativity, things that warp your mind and get in your mind, so many opinions and arguments and biased opinions and this and then quotes and yeah, we share all that. It's great, but when you really think about it, there's so much more to the things that we're sharing in a quote and in this. Well, yeah, okay, the quote's nice, but there's like 12 different sides to that quote. So you know, there is. It's fantasy, and somebody else has said that once. And you know, people are taking it too seriously. They're getting
Yes.
attached to people that they don't know.
Yes. Yes. It cannot be taken seriously. I don't care who owns the site. I don't care if Elon Musk owns the site. It cannot be taken seriously. There are tools that can be used to great advantage, like you mentioned, for nonprofit and promotion and so on, and career building. It's amazing. But as far as our children, our youth are using this for, very few of them are building businesses unless they're entrepreneurs or it's unusual. But we're taking so much stock in, and we're taking it way too seriously when we're getting responses. It's not healthy. It just can't be healthy. I mean, I get into some, you know, my youngest daughter doesn't want me to post anything on my Instagram unless she's approved it. And I'm like, come on. Come on. You know, like, come on. You know, I'm not even wearing makeup. I'm in my overalls. You know what I mean? It's like you can't take yourself too seriously because everybody else will take you seriously and they'll comment and it won't be positive.
Right? Very true. Absolutely true. I absolutely 100% agree. I mean, it's just, and it's also like I said, and then it's getting worse. I mean, offline in schools from I think social media because it's either offline and it kind of bleeds into social media, or it's social media and bleeds into offline. And I don't, you know, I have a lot of people that I work with here at Bullies Keep Out, and they won't even give their kids phones. And until they're a certain age, they don't want them to be anywhere on social media because it's become a dumpster fire in a lot of ways. Twitter
Yeah.
is.
Well, I think that's smart. I think it's smart. I think a child has to be emotionally mature enough to be able to handle what comes next. You know, I mean, they become little influencers, whether they like it or not. And you have to be able to handle the comments. I mean, some children just can't. Even at 15, 16, 17, 18, they just can't. They're
Yeah.
not emotionally equipped to handle it. And some adults, some adults aren't. I mean, there are moments where I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I just read that and looked in the mirror to see if it was true. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does get to us. I mean, look, I felt completely defeated and I felt horrible, and it did mess with my head. I mean, it got into there, and I already had a pandemic, other personal things going on in our lives, and then you're adding that to it, and your mental health just kind of just goes down, especially when you're already struggling.
Yeah.
And then there's just it's so dangerous, and there's so many people that I've spoken to that I've helped with suicide or suicide awareness and prevention and intervention and even, suicidal ideation. And it's like people just don't realize the seriousness of the abuse that bullying is. And I think that's what, a lot of the problem is that bullies are now becoming the victims and the people that are standing up for themselves are becoming the perpetrators. And it's like
Right.
you're getting
Right.
And that's
very interesting.
Yeah, it's like the mob cancel culture, societal culture that we're living in now, and that's become like the norm, sadly and unfortunately. Hopefully that changes with time. But when you did your piece, is that what prompted you, like your past, or was it something else, or did you just feel the need to just kind of put it out there at that moment in time for any specific reason?
Well, I have a little website that I love, and it's called theplayhouse.org. And I was writing little pieces of advice to new mothers or mothers to be. And I am very much involved in this approach to parenting that was devised by Dr. Emmy Pickler in Hungary in the 1930s. And I'm such an advocate. And when I started writing these little tidbits of information, these little articles for new mothers, I realized there's a point where bullying rears its ugly head. And it can happen very early on in preschool.
Yeah.
And what I have learned over the years of, I've been a mother for 28 years now, and with 3 children. And I saw this happening very early on, particularly with my son in the park. I would take him to the park and we would sort of play on the jungle gym and play with the birds and the pigeons. And I noticed all the boys in the park were trying to kill the pigeons. And my little boy, who is like the sweetest little gift of God, was picking up the feathers that the pigeons were leaving behind as they were fleeing from these violent abusers with sticks, trying to chop their heads off. And my son was truly traumatized. He was picking up the feathers and he was like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy." And I realized very early on, particularly with him, that it's a really cruel world out there. And we do our best as parents to teach our children that, love is love and life is about love, and let's penetrate and express love and do everything we can, evolving love. And yet here we were in the playground with a really distinct example of the fact that that's not strictly true, that life is violent and cruel and damaging and mutilating and all this stuff that a little 2-year-old's mind can't possibly understand. And when I wrote that article, I was thinking of my little boy Hugo and how to approach other parents in the park. I think it's important not to approach the child because the child is a product of their parents. So it spans all ways. If the parents are abusing each other or the child in the household, that will reflect itself in the park with the kids interacting between each other. And I could see it clearly. And it's the same with gossiping girls, which starts at a very early age, which is another form of bullying. And if the mothers gossip, the daughters will gossip. They just follow suit. They want to be like their parents. They admire their parents. They worship their parents. So if that's the tradition in the household, it will be represented by the infant from very early age. So I wanted to write an article that reflects that, because I think it's really important as we, as adults, really check our behavior, because we're influencing the next generations and we're doing a really bad job.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of things online and, on different apps, and I listen to people and I see comments and they're horrific, and they're really, it's unfortunate. And some people even post messages that they get and death threats and all these things. And it's hard to comprehend, and it baffles me what prompts somebody to just, that you don't know, to just throw such hate and throw such anger. And like you said, it stems from something, because they're victims of something, whether it's peer pressure, their parents, or, because adults, believe it or not, it's rampant among adults as well. Yes. Either with each other or they're just angry or hateful. And, on Twitter, it's one of the places I went off, because it's just like a dumpster fire at this time. It used to be fun. And one of my advocates said that we had that conversation one time. They were like, "Remember when Twitter used to be fun, and now you go on and it's just constant opinions and arguing and bullying, and it's like strangers, it's people you don't know, and it's I don't get how people can treat, humanity. A lot of people always say that they worry for humanity, and I do as well. I mean, I know there's beautiful things in the world and there's good things in the world, and that's never, going to go away. It's just we need to find a healthier balance. And I really do, like you said, I believe it starts with us. And I think, things like this and raising awareness. Um, I think raising awareness is one of the top things, not so much always fundraisers, because yes, it's great to, raise the money and for whatever people are doing. But I think it's so important to have conversations and tell stories, good and bad, and share them, because people, I just don't think we're listening. I think everybody's just too busy talking and not listening.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It takes a real skill to learn how to listen. And I think so much is the effect of our own childhoods and how we were raised, which is to the point of when you have a baby, it starts day one. It starts from conception. It starts, your responsibility is so huge. And how to raise a conscientious child with deep integrity and high self-esteem. That's the goal. And it doesn't happen. I mean, my parents, God bless them, I adore them, and they're really good people. And they had their flaws, and it took its toll on me. So, it's a vicious cycle, and it's very, very hard to accomplish the great feat of good parenting that will create better people, better humans who are kind and loving and who don't want to break each other down and pull each other apart like wild animals. Hopefully we've evolved somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, some people have even said they can almost not understand because it shouldn't be happening, but with kids and with children, like you said, they're a product of some things, and they maybe are not even cognitively. When you hear about 7 and 8-year-olds taking their lives, kids are really not fully cognitively developed, until certain ages, and I don't think they're comprehending what they're doing to each other. But what do you think? Like, a lot of people say, what are the excuses for an adult? Because it's a very conscious choice of an adult knowing exactly what they're doing.
To commit suicide?
Well, no, but like to bully and to, like, when a child does it, not that there's an excuse, but they're children, they're products of something, they're lost, they're confused, they're cognitively maybe not developed when they're very young. But a lot of people are saying, even though it still shouldn't be happening, what is the excuse for a grown adult who has a choice and who's consciously bullying somebody or hating on them, or because there's lots of adults taking their lives from bullying as well. It's not just kids, it's all ages, but a lot of people don't feel sorry.
Right, I hear you, and I think if we are traumatized at any age, it doesn't go away without working on those receptors that have caused massive amounts of damage in the brain and in the whole system of neurons in our minds. And I think if you're damaged as a child, which so many children are to some degree or other, obviously there are worse cases than others, there's a huge spectrum, but I think as adults we're not recovered. We're still traumatized. So we act out on our trauma. We take it out on others. We withdraw. We do all sorts of things. But until you rectify that initial damage that happens in very early childhood, before we're even 3 years old, I think unless we are looking at that poignant piece of our development, we're fucked. We're totally fucked. And unless you get to an age where you go, oh my God, I don't like the person that I've become. I don't like what I'm typing into my social media. I don't like my comments. That doesn't happen very often because people thrive. It's like a mold. It kind of grows inside and you can't get enough of it. And it's really detrimental and it chokes you and you'll eventually die. But these are people who have had childhood trauma that has never been recognized or dealt with. I really believe that. Because I
Yeah.
think, as I said, to some degree or other, we've all been traumatized as children because our parents were flawed, the system is flawed, our social structures are flawed, and they're not built to create high self-esteem in the youngest of humans.
Absolutely true, and it's a great point that you made because yeah, I mean I totally agree. I think that yeah, I mean we're all victims of something, and everybody's traumatized in their own way. And like you said, there is a wide spectrum of that, and yeah, there's always levels. Just like as people have said, I said there's different levels of bullying. I said it doesn't make it okay, but yes, there are different levels of that as well. And there's different names. There's domestic violence. It's a form of bullying, but of course it's on a different level. Um, so but let me ask you this because I know a lot of people feel that sometimes it just is, and I would like your thoughts on it. Like, do you just think that sometimes there's just not good people in the world and they don't have an excuse?
I think there's a lot of mental illness that goes untreated. I think there are people who, despite their environment, have a genetic impairment that is an illness that needs to be treated. I think that there is definitely a version of that mental illness that is evil.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard people say something similar that there's something going on somewhere that's obviously not healthy because and I've had people say like that sometimes there's just not good people and people just want to be mean and they could have had a wonderful life. It doesn't mean
But
that they
I don't know how responsible that evil person is. I think if
right.
they have a neurological disease, I don't know how culpable they can be for their actions. I think that it's something that should have been treated in early childhood that went unnoticed by their parents or their caregivers, and now it's developed into something out of control. I think it's something that can be curbed and controlled in early childhood. I mean, I'm such a believer of taking our children and taking care of them and acknowledging them and witnessing them as they are as children so we can determine what their future course of action will be. And more often than not, thank goodness, it's not a negative trajectory. But then there are the outliers that have neurological problems that need to be treated, and they're overseen. They slip through the system, and then they become the serial killers or the serial rapists or Dateline. I have Dateline on my TV right now. They're on Dateline right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you hear all those stories. Yeah, I watch all those types of shows because it interests me to study. I mean, I have a degree in psychology, so that those type of things always fit. I always find them fascinating when you're studying people, and I'm very much a person that's always been able to read people and watch, body language and behavior. Like, I had come from a lot of traumatic and trauma in background, and somebody asked me once, they're like, okay, so what makes you different that you went an opposite way? I said, I don't know. I said, I think that as we get older, you can consciously choose, I'm going to go this way and be like them, and they got you to that much. And, your parents, family, or whoever did in the abusive situations and other things of no matter what's happened to you, whether it was assault or abuse or it's all abuse in some form. But, people, I think would be an interesting study to see what makes some people be opposite, where they're like completely full of love, over love and care, and went the opposite way of the negativity and the trauma and then that they went through, and then those that went through, whether it was similar or not, chose to go down the complete opposite wrong path of and it is interesting, and it's an interesting question, and I think there's lots of layers to it, and I think it's interesting when you hear different people give their perception on it.
Well, I think that your choice to go in the right direction was something that you were neurologically capable of making.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's an interesting, yeah, that's an interesting perception because I never really thought about it that way. like, neurologically is, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's an interesting topic and conversation because there's lots of layers to it of what makes somebody go one way and the other person go another way, and say they came from two situations. Say it was me and I had a brother or a sister and I went this way to love and kindness and they went the opposite way to bullying and hate and anger. So what made us go to completely separate ways from the same situation?
Well,
So, yeah.
it wasn't necessarily environmental. It was much more internal and much more of a genetic neurological factor. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I have a great psychologist who's literally saved my life, who you're more than welcome to speak to. I'm sure he would love to participate. But it's an interesting topic, and I'm so grateful that I have made the same choice as you.
Yeah. It's a hard choice. It is, because you get all that healing that you have to go through, but there is a lot of anger that you get stuck in. You get stuck in that dark, because we all have dark and light, and you do get stuck there. I've been there, and I've been angry, and I've been here and there and everywhere, and that's normal. Human nature. We're going to be all over the place. Nobody's going to be like, okay, I'm just perfect and everything. I'm never going to be upset or say the wrong thing or be mad, but like, people need to understand the difference between that and bullying, because bullying and the word bully is also thrown around very incorrectly and wrong and inappropriately. People will be like, oh, we had a fight, you're a bully. No, that's not. I've had people come to me, oh, I had a business disagreement. No, but that's not bullying. So like, it's like, I can't, and it's not, I might give them a piece of advice and I might give them my thoughts, but at the end of the day, like, a lot of people are very confused what bullying is. So we also like to educate about it and talk about it and get people's different viewpoints, because it's not as simple as just putting in the Google definition. There's a lot more to it. But I know we're getting close to the half an hour, but we could always talk again down the road. But I also wanted to get your final thoughts on what are some things that you think might help in this fight against bullying, both online and offline. I mean, in schools, they're not really doing a lot in a lot of schools, but I also feel because we have one of our campaigns is Voices Amplified, because I feel like these social media apps make money off of the hate and the bullying, and they don't do a damn thing and could care less. Block. Well, that doesn't do anything when somebody can make 10 burner accounts and still bully you on just another account. So, like, what are your thoughts on some things, or that, just your viewpoint on, some of the fight against bullying, and what are some of the things that maybe we can do and work on or promote, or, things like that?
Well, I think I have two answers to your question. One of them is, with the current state of affairs, I think we need to teach our children to take this less seriously. I think it needs to be something they do for fun and then put their phones away and not look for how many responses they're getting, how many likes they're getting, how many comments they're getting. I think they need to take it less seriously and give them something else to do that's so much more fun, so much more rewarding. I don't know what that is. You'll figure it out. The other side of this is, I think we need to start way early on in early childhood with our parenting. We need to give our parents much more education about how to raise self-esteem in their infants as they grow, so that a negative comment isn't going to devastate a child. These kids are being raised with very low self-esteem, so they're hanging on every comment that comes their way to define themselves, and that's not how one defines oneself. But we're not giving our children the education that they need, and we're not giving our parents the education they need in order to implement that. So I think it's really important, which is why I started the website, the Playhouse. So that would be my answer.
No, that's great. I love that answer, because it's unique, and it's I haven't heard it from that point of view on the full range that you're putting it at yet. So I think that I mean I love that answer, and I think it's great, and then there's truth to that, and it's a lot that I think parents, I've said this many times, I think schools need to be having bullying programs, do more. I think parents need to also be involved in being them. I think also as parents, and even if you're a friend or you're an aunt or you're a grandmother, talk to these kids about empathy, compassion, understanding, acceptance, LGBT community, different cultures, different races. And I just don't think that I know people are like, we're so busy and the world and the pandemic and the busy. It's like, but you can't be too busy to raise your kids and have these conversations.
Or don't
Because,
have kids. If you're too busy, don't have the kids.
yeah, I mean, we can't rely on the schools. I think schools should be teaching these things as well and integrating it into their curriculums and teaching history and teaching, about bullying and acceptance and having them, whether it's a rally every month in the gym and somebody comes and speaks. I mean, I've spoken at my friend's school in New York, where I'm from, virtually during the pandemic, his LGBT community group that they had. I've done a motivational speaking in New Jersey with an advocate. I've done virtual and in person, and besides all the other things that we do here. And it's like, yeah, a lot of people aren't having these conversations in the full range and that they should, especially with their kids. They're not sitting down with them and explaining to them, don't bully and why you shouldn't. And they're relying on other people at the schools, and the schools are saying it's the parents. And instead of working together, everybody's just blaming it on each other and saying this one and that one should do it. So that's why I like to do this and raise awareness in all the ways that I can, because, hey, if these people are online and these kids do jump in, they're hearing it from somewhere, hopefully.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. Well, I'm here for you. I support your cause, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, you too.
Let's do it.
Yes, absolutely. We will definitely set up another one. And thank you for taking the time, and thank you for your support. And it was a great conversation. And then I thank you for all your thoughts and your viewpoints on it. It was very enlightening, and I look forward to chatting again.
Yeah, next time I'll get it right signing on.
We got it down next time. It always happens. No big deal.
All right, you take care.
All right. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.